Welcome back to West Virginia Gun Law. I'm attorney Todd Leneve. Last time we got together, we talked about castle doctrine and how that plays out in a self-defense scenario within your home. Today we're going to spend a few minutes talking about how you can defend yourself out in public, specifically while you're driving your vehicle. Stick around. So we've all seen the things going on right now around the country, particularly out in California, but there is rioting and protest happening all across the country in major cities right now. The actions out in California have been absolutely out of hand, with people waving foreign country flags, protesting the efforts of the White House to deport illegal aliens, among other social issues that are certainly the passion of the day for that crowd. And we've seen the violence that has erupted from these mostly peaceful protests. So now, as if those things aren't enough, there are various groups who have banded together and are calling for a national day of resistance, essentially, on June 14th, this coming Saturday, saying that we want to take this message of discontent and take it from just the major city centers, and we want to spread it across the entire United States. And in fact, there is a website, nokings.org, you can take a look at, and it actually has a map that shows many of the areas where they're calling for organized protests. Make no mistake about it, this is a well-funded, well-organized effort, and there will be additional protests all over the place this coming Saturday. Now, whether those turn violent or not remains to be seen, but certainly based on the activities that have been occurring over the past couple of weeks, we know that that side of America and that side of people who aren't from America but are here now are willing to become violent, are willing to break the law, ignore the rules of an organized, civilized society to try to get their message across. So, what happens if you're out and about minding your own business, driving, and you suddenly find yourself in the middle of a mob that is involved in one of these protests? You're driving along, you turn a corner, and suddenly you've got people all around you, surrounding your vehicle, angrily shouting, chanting slogans. You see improvised weapons, bricks, rocks, pieces of cinder block like we've seen out in California being thrown through car windows. People perhaps have bats, clubs, things like that. Perhaps you see some actual conventional weapons and realize you are in danger because you've turned on the wrong street on the wrong day. So first off and foremost, it's important to remember that the laws of self-defense always apply, no matter where you may be defending yourself, whether it's in your home, whether it's out in public in your vehicle. You have to be sure that first and foremost, you are innocent of any wrongdoing. That's one of the most important factors in self-defense cases, and quite often is one that leads to many people losing the ability to argue self-defense because they engaged in some unlawful activity that perhaps precipitated that defensive encounter. Now, in a scenario like this, unless you went out looking for a crowd to create trouble, the bottom line is if you're just out and about driving, minding your own business, running errands, living life, you probably will be seen as innocent in any scenario that you might unexpectedly find yourself engulfed in with a mob. So let's say that's what happens. You've turned a corner, you've gone down a street, and suddenly people come rushing out, and they've got signs and weapons and intent, and they're banging on your car, smacking your windows, trying to get in, clearly showing an intent to you that you are in danger. You're in danger of death or serious bodily harm. And you wonder, what do I do here? What's the law allow me to do? Well, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that you should not stop. You should not exit your vehicle under any circumstances. That vehicle does provide you some level of safety, not perfect safety, especially against a large, motivated, angry crowd. but it does provide you some safety. So tactically, stay in your vehicle. But what do you do when you find yourself stuck? You have no immediate means available to turn off to escape this crowd. I've got a few things that I think are reasonable suggestions that I believe can be argued as justifiable responses to this kind of a mass crowd threat. First off, continue driving straight ahead, but do so at a speed slow enough that anybody, no matter what their physical condition is, would be able to get out of the way if they chose to do so. 1 to 3 miles an hour is probably a sufficiently slow speed to show that you weren't trying to ram people, run them over, do anything. If they choose not to get out of your way in a situation where you are in danger, you have an ability to argue that you did the most reasonable thing you could in the face of that very serious threat. Secondly, I recommend lay on the horn while you're driving. Make sure that people know your vehicle is moving. They have their attention drawn to you, which may seem counterintuitive in a mob situation, but only so many people can get around your vehicle. Make sure that they know that you are honking, you're signaling, hey, I'm not stopping, this vehicle is continuing to go. Now, if the mob mentality shows very clearly to you that you are under danger, there is an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm, people smashing your window with, again, improvised weapons, whatever they may be, or conventional weapons, pull your firearm out and have it ready to display. If you need to, you point it at somebody and make sure they understand the message that you're conveying. You don't want to persist in that course of action, or you may be shot because you are putting my life or the life of the occupants of my vehicle in danger. I have a right to defend against that, and that includes the use of equivalent force, whether that's deadly force or otherwise. And remember, that vehicle, by the way, is a deadly force threat because you can, in fact, kill somebody if you run them over. So, simply recapping, drive slow, drive very slow, 1 to 3 miles an hour. Honk that horn, continue straight ahead, and if need be, pull your weapon out and be ready to display it. Be ready to point it in the direction of the person who poses the immediate threat to you. But remember, above all else, all the rules of self-defense apply. You've got to be able to establish that you met all those standards, key of which is that you were innocent of wrongdoing. Now, these ideas that I'm sharing with you, certainly, one, are not legal advice, and two, are not going to necessarily prevent you from being charged and arrested for any harm that may come as a result of your actions. These activities that we're seeing are happening in a lot of blue states, blue cities, where those of us who are in the 2A community understand we're not seen as the good guys. Many law enforcement agencies don't believe in an armed citizenry, and so in those places, be prepared to not be greeted as the hero when you get out on the other side of the crowd, but rather be prepared to be greeted as a guy who's about to be arrested. Many of these prosecutors are motivated to come after people like us and make an example and hopefully chill the desire of others to protect themselves in the face of a threat like this. If that's the motivation, there's nothing you can do that's going to be right in their eyes aside from die. And that certainly is not an option. So protect yourself, do so reasonably, and give your attorney the ability to argue that your actions were justifiable under the law because you were reasonable, methodical, and measured in your approach and response to this unmeasured, irrational, illogical threat that was presented to you by this mob mentality. And above all, the most important thing is that you get out of that situation alive and safe. Listen, interesting topic, a lot of things going on right now that we need to be keeping an eye on. But if you have thoughts, questions, or comments, please drop them in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. I appreciate you guys coming around and waiting on this video and spending some time with me today. Look forward to seeing the next one. Until then, take care and please be safe.